Good morning, everyone. My name is Margaret Joyce. I am the president of the Greater Dover Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for joining us and taking the time this morning. We have a good program this morning, an overview from two folks I think you'll enjoy hearing from. This webinar is designed to be very informational, data heavy. It's not really designed as a sort of a how-to market, but if that's something folks are interested in, we can certainly put that together afterwards. So I would like to let you know that we are going to be recording this seminar, and that is so that people who couldn't join us today will be able to access the webinar on the Chamber website. So just be mindful that it is recording. Keep yourself muted unless you're asking a question. Our plan today is to hear from our panelists, and then we're going to open it up to a Q&A for you. We have allotted an hour for the presentation. Warren Daniel is going to speak for about 10 minutes. Christine's slides take about 20 minutes or so, and then we should have plenty of time for Q&A. So I would like to remind you of a webinar coming up on Friday. You probably got an email about it this morning. We're doing a follow-up to our Paycheck Protection Program webinar. We have someone coming from Shaheen & Gordon, First Seacoast Bank, and Leonie McDonald Roberts to talk about the forgiveness aspect. Treasury just came out with the guidelines, I believe it was late Friday. So those of you who did apply for the PPP and want to learn more about the forgiveness aspect of it and how to navigate those forms and that application, please plan to tune in on Friday. That webinar is free. You can find information on our website if you didn't get the email. So let's go right into the program. This is part of our local expert series, and we are very pleased to have two strong presenters today. We're going to hear from Warren Daniel, who is the Seacoast Regional Director for the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center, also a former small business owner himself, and also Christine Sieks, who is the Regional Market President for Northeast for Townsquare Media. So Christine, I think you're going to take us through the agenda, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Margaret. Welcome, everybody. So today it's really about getting a handle on how we move forward in this new economy with new guidelines. And we're going to cover a lot of ground that hopefully will be of assistance to you in creating your own strategies to be successful going forward. So Warren's going to talk to us about the available resources and guidance from the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center. We're going to tackle the elephant in the room, to advertise or not to advertise, to understand the why behind why to advertise. We'll look at current market research so we understand what does it look like out there in the consumer marketplace. What are the shifts in media consumption that have happened over the past 2.5 months of our society largely being inside our homes? What's that consumer journey look like so we have a base understanding of how we go about gaining customers, how important it's going to be to build new trust going forward with consumers, and then 5 steps to help you create your strategy and why data is the new certainty in uncertain times and what that really means. So let's start with Warren.
Hello, my name is Warren Daniel, Seacoast Regional Director and Senior Business Advisor for the New Hampshire Small Business Development Center. I've been with the organization for 19 years now. I'm a long-term former business owner where I owned a local chain of quick service restaurants called The Bakery for many years. And so the SBDC is a nonprofit organization. We get our funding from the Small Business Administration as well as from the state of New Hampshire, and we're an extension service of the University of New Hampshire. So during normal times, we provide assistance in many, many different areas, including access to capital, business turnaround, spreadsheet development, financial analysis, and many, many different areas. Our services are paid for with taxpayer dollars, so it is no charge to the clients. Services are 100% confidential, and services are professional in that we all get professional development. We all have a strong entrepreneurial background, and most of us have MBAs as well. So, next slide, Christine. So right now, during this COVID-19 crisis, we are really focused on helping with businesses getting through to the other side. Christine is going to talk about the new economy. We're really focused on how to get businesses to the other side of this and trying to understand what that new economy is and what this recession, strong recession, we don't know where that's going to end up yet, might look like. We certainly do not have a crystal ball, but we can try to help clients work on different scenarios, financial scenarios, marketing help, operational assistance, et cetera. So our one-on-one business advising is really our strength. However, we have a very strong webinar presence right now. We're doing 1 to 2 per day. I'm finishing up my restaurant series. I had the last one in that series yesterday, which dealt with operational realities in the new world. But I'm putting that on again a week from yesterday, next Tuesday at 10 or 1 o'clock, I forget, but it's all on our website. So our COVID-19 page is a very active page relative to the latest on COVID-19. So we're putting together, we have webinars on communication practices for recovery and reopening. We have a restaurant series that we're going to update, and probably as this develops further, we'll update them further. Assistance for the self-employed, PPP application assistance, we're doing that as well, Margaret. But Margaret's going to have an excellent one on Friday. We talked about that beforehand. Generating cash flow and using best practices and relief programs to your advantage. So getting through this is going to be a challenge for everybody. Friday, Governor Sununu announced a $595 million COVID-19 recovery fund, of which $400 million will be used towards the Main Street Fund program. That's going to be a grant program. Application is due Friday, the 29th for that. So I encourage everybody who is interested to get their application. It's a quick application. Turnaround time after that is going to be quick. The specifics of the program will be announced June the 1st, and the next phase of the application will be more involved application will be due on June the 8th. So keep an eye out for that. There's also $30 million that's allocated to the BFA Small Business Gap Fund, and that goes to the Business Finance Authority, which is a state quasi-public organization that is the state's answer to the SBA, so they guarantee loans. I would encourage you to take a look at that as well. And for other industries that are not included in the Main Street Fund, farm and food and childcare and nonprofits, there's money allocated to that as well. There's the link to that, and you know, I want to sort of talk about so our COVID-19 assistance page is something that you should all take a look at probably twice a week, and sign up for our newsletter as well. This isn't self-serving at all. We really want to serve the small business community in the best way we can. So that COVID-19 page gets updated probably daily with the latest information. So I want to segue into the importance of marketing. You know, marketing, you need to look at your business now as a new way of doing business. Recessions, you know, the ones that understand downturns in the economy and plan for that are the ones that will come out in the other end. And when we think about marketing and advertising dollars and the spend relative to we take a look at that as a percentage of revenue. I always encourage and advise businesses to spend more as a percentage of revenue in the beginning for the first year to get the name out, et cetera. Well, that's true of downturns in the economy as well. Marketing is never more important than when you want to retain and add new customers and clients. So your competitors might not be advertising. Many of your competitors might be going out of business. So it's an opportunity to create and add to market share that wouldn't normally happen. So you can look at this as an opportunity to really do that. And you know, what kind of resources that you might utilize to be able to do that is more of a one-on-one situation. So I just, you know, I want to segue into Christine when we advise strong spending in marketing and advertising dollars, certainly to your existing clients, and then the opportunity to get new clients.
No question. Warren, thank you for that and for the update on Friday's announcement, what the deadlines are coming up to get access to that $400 million. It's incredible support to our local businesses, and we know speed to action is important in these cases, so encourage everybody to make that a priority, and helps everybody move forward. So when we talk about to advertise or not to advertise, Warren and I and many others see it exactly the same way, including the public. So in looking at this survey that was done by the Advertising Specialty Institute, people were asked whether or not brands should continue to advertise during a time like this. And only 8% of those surveyed said they expect brands to stop advertising. On the flip side, 86% of people said companies who advertise during a down economy are top of mind when it comes to making a purchase decision. And they also feel better about the company's commitment to products and services when they advertise in a recession. So like Warren said, it's an opportunity. So Forbes wrote an article about the reasons to continue advertising during a slowdown. There are both short and long-term benefits. So as Warren was saying, there's less competition. What does that mean? With less noise in the market, your business has an opportunity to grow in sales during a slowdown and for years after. And that's been proven time and time again over the course of history. For example, one of the legendary stories is about Kellogg's cereal, who during an economic downturn took a position, increased their advertising, and during that downturn actually grew market share by 30%, for the short term, and then in the long term continued with that. Post cereal took an opposite approach and went dark and has never been able to recover to the extent that Kellogg's has in terms of market share. There's also the opportunity for brand awareness. So maintaining ad spend will strengthen market share like we just talked about, both during and after a slowdown. So in order for us to figure out how you move forward, it's critical to understand what's been going on in the marketplace these past 2.5 months with everyone being inside and the shift to a whole new way of operating in our society. So really important to look at the data. What is the current market research telling us? And even after this webinar, it's important to keep reading those articles because this is unfolding in real time. So in mid-April, we saw a shift where more businesses began focusing on reopening strategies, okay? As we start to have more weeks behind us than we have in front of us in terms of returning to some sense of normality and how we go out and purchase products and services. So there was a 10-point jump in businesses who are planning to maintain or increase their spending in advertising. So everybody is in this part of their journey. When we look at marketing messages that have changed, what product or service innovations will you continue to continue with or start offering? So this is really important. So if you've been operating in a scaled back way or dark, what innovations have you put in place with your business in terms of curbside pickup, whatever it might be? Everything's virtual. What innovations are your customers liking and that you're liking, they're responding to, that you're going to plan to keep going forward? Or if you're reopening from scratch, what are those innovations in order to comply with guidelines and make the consumer feel safe? So with this survey question, the question was, which of the following has your business done related to marketing messages as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? And 60% said it was about informing customers of new precautions being taken and then adjusting their creative messaging to reflect that and what they've offered new and for different options for customers. So really important that you wrap your arms around what those things will continue to be or are going to be, and then message that, because if the consumers don't know, we're not giving them a reason to do business with you sooner rather than later. So what do consumers want ads to say? When surveyed, the preferred content in advertising was, tell me the service adjustments and updates that are going on with your business. What hours are you open now? Because a lot of businesses have adjusted their hours. How do I do business with you? Tell me how you're going to help, and tell me how you're being compliant. Now that Sununu has given us really clear guidance on how we move forward and reopen in a way that keeps both our employees safe and our customers safe, compliance is critically important. And whatever it is that you communicate to the public about how you're going to create a safe environment, when the consumer makes those first choices about the first, second, or third businesses they're going to step out of their homes and visit in person, when they have that experience, it needs to match what you've messaged for compliance and safety. If you say to the public, you can expect these 3 things to happen when doing business with us in this new environment, and the consumer says, okay, I feel comfortable with them, I'm going to go there first, and that experience doesn't match the message, you lose them forever. Fear is very real right now, and we have to think about everything through that lens in the steps moving forward, and then have a communication strategy to get the word out so that we give consumers a reason to pick you, put you on their short list, which helps you springboard your recovery to come out of this running, not walking. So Shopkick recently did a survey of 20,000 consumers. This was done towards the end of April. With the new updates, stricter regulations, and growing concerns about the virus, that led to drastic changes in consumer shopping behavior in a matter of weeks, okay? As consumers start to open up their minds to going out of their homes. So 82% of consumers said concerns about the virus were affecting their shopping habits. That was up from 76% in March. And that's because consumers are shifting their mindset like, okay, I'm gonna go out into the world and expose myself to more places beyond my grocery store, the liquor store, and the drugstore, right? So that creates fears. How do we address those fears and build trust? And we're gonna talk about that in a few minutes, so that people will choose your business. These consumers also talked about frequenting new retailers more often and remaining open to trying new brands and products. So like what Warren was saying, this is your opportunity. It's actually an unprecedented opportunity with a level set that has happened against your competition to grab market share, because everybody's in the same boat right now. So what are you going to do to make sure you get your unfair share of returning customers and new customers, because your competitors are not stepping up the way they need to, and then messaging on the innovations that they're going to be putting in place or continue. So we're going to talk about how you go about doing that. Before we do, it's really important to understand the shifts that have happened in media consumption with both traditional media, and we'll talk about what that means, and with digital media, since our lifestyles have all changed. So with traditional media, this is a chart that looks at the percent of Americans increasing use of both radio, newspapers, and reading magazines during the COVID-19 pandemic. When you have a public crisis like this, society leans into all kinds of media. Number one, to get information, to understand what's happening, in the world, nationally, but then also locally in their community. Where can they find resources? What can provide a distraction to me during this time? Because this is a lot to handle emotionally. How do I entertain myself during this time? Find some joy during this time. So you can see that surge in the consumption of traditional media across all 3 of these platforms, particularly with radio, across every demographic. With digital, so many of us spending our time in our homes and in front of screens like this one, people are spending a lot more time entertaining themselves through streaming, through social media, through mobile apps, you name it. So what is this looking like? The data shows us that news websites are preferred for breaking news. Video streaming subscriptions usage has surged. Of course, we can all relate to that. In-person needs are mostly being met with social media. If we can't go and be with our friends in person, then we have these outlets with Instagram and Facebook, you name it, to be with them in a different way. That's always been part of our daily habits for most of us, but that has surged because we as human beings crave interaction with other human beings. And those social media platforms is where people are spending exponentially more time to stay in touch with friends and family and feel a sense of connection, so important during this isolating time. How about the live sports viewing? Normally, a lot of us would be ramping up with baseball. That's not an option right now. And so that time has shifted to more consumption of streaming video services and gaming, all of which have ad positions. So when we talk about how do I reach a consumer, where is the consumer spending time? They're spending time on their social media channels. They're spending time streaming. They're spending time gaming. All of those outlets have opportunities for you to get your message in front of a potential consumer. And then lastly, paywalls are coming down and premium content is offered for free. I'm in the middle of my 30-day Showtime free subscription. I'm caught up on Homeland. I'm caught up on Ray Donovan, very happy about it. So that's a big piece of it. So what does this all mean? What does this mean for your business and going forward? Well, one thing remains the same, which is the foundation of a consumer journey. What are we talking about there? This gets back to sort of marketing 101. How do I go about getting attention for my business and moving a potential customer through their decision funnel, if you will, to then pick my business and do business with me? So it starts with building awareness. That's where you have the big megaphone and you let people know, yes, we're open. Because if you're not building that awareness, people assume you're not. You're either not open yet or your business didn't make it. But everybody on this call has decided they're going to go for it. They are going to stay open, or they're going to reopen, and they're going to make it. And that's why you have opted into this webinar, to put your very best foot forward to figure out how to do that and ensure success going forward. So it starts with build awareness by letting customers know that you're built to serve the community and how. The how is critically important, as the research has shown us, whether that's in the future or today. So if you're not opening right away, when will you be opening? What's it going to look like? Then you start to generate interest. The online portion of the consumer journey becomes more important because more people are spending time there. That will shift again. We're seeing way more cars on the road. I mean, every single morning through this pandemic, I go for a walk with my husband through downtown Dover. We had many weeks where there wasn't a single car parked down there. Now there are cars lined up at intersections, cars in parking spots. There are workmen everywhere. I mean, it is busy. Okay, so we're in transition. Like I said, this data is important to continually look at as we move through this journey together as a community. So online has been very important, will continue to be. But as people start to add more things to their daily journey that requires them getting in their cars and getting out of their homes, you've got more radio in their life. They're leaving some screen time. But we want to definitely be in front of them with these digital channels, social media, digital advertisings to inform and educate consumers while in their homes, consuming that content that we've been talking about. And then lastly, your job is to convert them, right? Understand who is my target consumer now. What I thought I knew about my business and my target consumer 2.5 months ago may not be true now. So we need to reevaluate that. Who is my target? Who's ready to buy now? And how do I get people to be researching my business so when they're ready to buy, I'm the one they choose? It starts with building trust. And this is something that a lot of us may not have taken into consideration at the same level that we need to now. Safety is first and foremost on people's minds. 3 months ago, when we may have looked at, for restaurants, for example, what are the most important things a restaurant needs to get out there? What do they want to be known for? Quality of their food. Maybe it's convenience. Maybe price is a factor. Safety was probably not in the top 6 or 7 items of priority. Now it's number 1, okay? That's a shift. We need to really tune into that. So no matter what industry you're in, it starts with building new trust with the marketplace. Number 1, identify the innovations you've made to your products and services that you plan to keep or add. That's your first step. Finalize the steps you're going to take to ensure both employee and customer health and safety at your physical site. So now you've got your infrastructure in place, you've made your decisions. Number 3 is to develop that communication strategy exclusively focused on overcoming customer anxiety, concerns, and hesitancy. This cannot be underestimated. We saw on a previous slide that over 80% of consumers surveyed just a few weeks ago are increasingly concerned about this. Can't emphasize this part enough. So here are 5 actual steps that you can take to create your strategy to springboard your business, okay? It starts with revisiting, who is my target? You may have already accumulated a number of new customers who have been coming to your business during this time because you've innovated. They weren't able to get what they wanted from their usual spot, or they liked your innovation and they've started coming to you. What are the reasons for that? Who are those people? What do we know about them? There may be some subgroups within your target, some sub-targets. Sit down, take some time and identify who is the person, who is my ideal customer, who is my most profitable customer. What do I know about them so that I can go after more of those types of people? What are the benefits that that customer is seeking? What do they want? Safety we know is number one. What am I providing for safety? Convenience, whatever it is for your business, what is it that you're going to provide that target consumer to motivate them to put you on the short list to do business with them as they start leaving their homes more? Then it's important to look at the competition. What are the competitive perceptions out there? Who else can give your customer what they want? Get online, see how they're messaging it. Take a look at, is their website buttoned up? Or is the only way to find out what's going on with them is to try to kind of go through Facebook and go through all the posts and try to find out what the hours are? Got to have that online foundation set. It is not good enough to just post on Instagram and Facebook. You're making it harder than it needs to be for a consumer to do business with you. Got to get that homepage and the messaging buttoned up. It needs to be mobile friendly. If I hear about your business because you're creating awareness, the first thing a consumer does, they go to Google. If you can't be found on page one, they're gone. If they can find you and they're on their phone and you're not mobily optimized, or they can't find the information that they heard, allegedly you were going to be reopening and here's how it's going to work, they're gone. Because there is someone else who's going to make it clear to them how to do business with them and why. Don't be left behind by not getting your foundation set. So then figure out, how do I position my business in the competition? What your customer wants most that you can deliver as well or better than the competition. And then you start to get into your advertising or promotions decisions, okay? Why should your customer want to do business with you and why now? That why now is so important because you are trying to ramp up your cash flow as quickly as possible from either being closed or operating in a restricted way. So speed to action, that communication strategy that you're going to put together, getting the word out in all your channels is what is going to motivate people to come see you sooner, which helps you with cash flow. Cash is king, right, Warren? So what are the benefits to taking a time out and doing this? You will stay closer to your business if you take yourself through that 5-step marketing model. You will get what you really need, and you'll be less likely to buy things that you don't really need. So that's why the planning is important. Think about this. We've all done it. When we go to the grocery store without a shopping list and we're hungry, what happens? We go through the store, we buy a whole bunch of stuff we didn't need, whatever looked attractive. Oh, that looks really delicious. I'm just going to get that, get that, get that. You go to check out. It costs you way more than you were planning to spend on that trip. You get home and you have nothing for dinner. Because all you did was you were hungry, you were distracted, you went through without a plan, and all these things happened. You blew your budget, you didn't really get what you need, you bought things that you didn't really need. Although maybe yummy, but not going to help you long term. There's nothing for dinner tonight. That's why it's important to take a time out. Right now, it's so hard. You are very busy working in your business. It might be you, the owner, or you are the owner, it's a spouse, it's your kids, maybe 1 or 2 key employees. You are in it. But during this time, you need to take a time out to work on it, work on your business, and put a plan together and partner with Warren's team, for example, to get, these are incredibly free resources, incredible resources and free. Why wouldn't you get all the advice you can to make sure you stay in business? So here's how Townsquare Media can help. Let's look at the research about data. In uncertain times, data provides certainty. So in this advertiser perception study, 65% of advertisers agree to focus their spend on media that can show direct sales. What are the things that you can do that will absolutely get people to take the next step, Google you, find out about how you're operating, and then leave their home or call or interact with you to do business with you? okay? It's important to pick a marketing mix that has data that can show you in real time how each marketing channel is working, how each of your messages are working. So if you're running, for example, 2 different marketing messages, whether that's in a digital ad, a commercial of some kind, maybe one of them is on safety, we're open, here's when, here's how. It's a communication strategy. And maybe you have another set of creative that is a message that is running with a special offer. With data, with marketing channels that come with data, you'll be able to see which one of those messages are sending more people to my website, which is your first indicator of how your marketing is working. No one has the answers right now. So the data is what gives us the answers. We have never closed, like entirely closed for the most part, as a society or an economy. Unprecedented times, as we've heard over and over again. So data is what gives you certainty, and you need a partner that's going to provide you, whoever it is, a partner that has tactics that can give you information about how they're working. The kinds of things that are available to you, obviously with digital, you can see the towns that are clicking, the people who are clicking, what they're clicking on, how long they're staying on your site, where are they spending the most time? Are they checking out your hours? Are they spending the most time with your safety page, whatever it may be. Radio even has new capabilities in the past few years, and some of you may or may not be familiar with this, that with Townsquare Analytics, for example, we can tell you how many people visit your website within 8 minutes of a radio commercial airing. Why is that helpful? If you're running 2 different commercials, we can tell you what's getting more people to go to your site next. Is it the offer or is it the safety messaging? We can, if you're running on multiple radio stations, we can tell you which audience is visiting your site the most after hearing your commercial. Days of the week, times of the day. Why is all that information important? Because as you start to invest in your marketing with your valued cash, you need to absolutely be sure you're getting the best possible ROI. How do you do that? You watch the data with your partner, whoever that may be, and you optimize your campaign, meaning you make it smarter as it goes to get a better ROI by making adjustments based on what the marketplace, how the marketplace is reacting. How do you get that information? With reporting. So with Townsquare, we firmly believe that setting the foundation for your business is critically important. If your online foundation isn't ready to go, you are not in a position to be spending money on marketing. Why is that? As I said a few minutes ago, if you're going to build awareness to let people know, yes, we're still in business, here's how, and I go to Google, can't find you or you're not worth finding, that person is gone. So if you're going to go out there and say, hey, pick me, pick my business, know that the first step is they're going to go online to check you out. If you're not ready there, you have wasted your money on marketing. Because your online foundation is the first step in converting that person, the prospective, that prospect into a customer. Have to be found on page 1, have to have a website that communicates clearly the priorities of what consumers want right now. Then you can start to put together your marketing mix, whatever that may be, whether it's radio, direct mail, email marketing, social media, paid search, whatever it is, whoever you work with. Make sure you have data and make sure you're ready to go online so you can get the return on your business to stay in business. So what are the top 3 takeaways? If you do nothing else following this, reach out to Warren's team. There's no downside. It costs you nothing, and it only gives you a partner in what can be an isolating time to build strategy. Plan to build new trust. Can't skip this part. Critically important. Take a time out from working in your business to work on your business and take yourself through the 5 steps to create your strategy. Do not make assumptions about the way you used to operate. The world has completely changed and not everything applies from before. And then lastly, data is the new certainty. Whoever you work with for your marketing partners, ask up front how they're going to be able to share with you how the marketplace is responding so you can continue to evolve with your message and strategy as our situation unfolds and more people start consuming outside of their homes. So with that, here's some contact information. I'm sure Margaret will be sending out the deck. Here's how you can reach out to Warren's team, to my team. We're happy to be a resource. Is on the board for the Dover Chamber for 7 years, chaired the board. We live and work in these communities. Our priority is in making sure that, you know, the greater Seacoast region springboards out of this healthy and prospers. So thank you for tuning in today. Margaret?
Thank you, Christine. We do have a couple of questions, and one I'd want to jump right in. Chef Mike is on the call, and we should recognize that the Greater Dover Chamber has businesses throughout the region and even across the border in Maine. So Warren did point out that there is, he has a counterpart in Maine, and he did put that information in the chat. So if you are a Maine business, there is a Maine SBDC as well.
Can I add something to that, Margaret?
Yes, please, yes.
Sure.
Yes.
So first of all, my contact information, Krista Rodriguez is my program assistant, and if anybody's interested in an appointment, please go through her. But as far as to how the SBDCs are set up, there are SBDCs throughout the country. Each state has their own SBDC. The larger states have multiples, but New Hampshire and Maine work closely together, as does Massachusetts and Vermont. And we have a New England group that works very well together. So the reason for that is because we're partially state funded. We have to stop at the borders.
And I'm sure Warren and Christina both, if there are questions that come up afterwards, you do have their contact information, and if they don't have the answer, they can probably get it for you, or certainly reach out to us at the Chamber. I'd also like to point out, Christine was very careful to say whoever your media partner is, and thank you for that, Christine. There are many opportunities out there to get your word out. This, is not intended to be, just Townsquare, and Christine was very sensitive to that. As she stated, she was on the board for many, many years, and understands that there are many partners out there. But Christine, if I may be so bold, if people do have questions, I assume you're willing to be a resource.
Happy to be a resource, whether it's Townsquare or other outlets. We all work together, especially at a time like this.
Yeah. And that's really the key in a time like this. The goal here is to really help all of our businesses and help the community. So with that, I'd like to open it up to questions. We did have one that was typed in, Warren, and it looks like it was directed to you, but maybe Christine, you can weigh in as well. So Kevin Duffy, who runs True Marketing Communications, has stated that his advice to his clients has been that they should spend between 8 to 10% of revenue on marketing, and 25% or more if it is a new brand. What percentages does the SBA or the SBDC recommend? So Warren, if you could start us off.
Thank you for that question, Kevin, and thank you, Margaret. We like to take a look at each individual situation and how it presents itself. So we take a look at overhead, we take a look at projections for a new business. To me, depends, there are each industry has its own recommendations. So I'll give you an example. The restaurant industry, for a startup, we like to spend between, 5 and 8% of projected revenue on marketing and advertising. That's not including the pre-startup expenses. You want to get the name, you want to get the brand recognition out there, you want to get your website up and running, you want to get your social media up and running prior to the opening. But after, on an ongoing spend, we look at between 5 and 8%. To me, 25% for a brick and mortar business is high, because you've got to weigh that against your other expenses, your other overhead, your cost of sales, etc. For a consulting business, it might be different because you have very low overhead. So if you're looking to open up a consulting business where there are services only, and no cost of goods sold, that might be higher. So we like to take a look at it for an industry standard. We have some good databases that we're able to access. So, and also from a projection point of view, what can one afford to spend the first year, and where is that money coming from?
Yeah, I would add, I agree with you, Warren. It does vary by industry. Different industries have different profit margins as well, so that's a factor. Right now, Cash is king, always is, but particularly now. And so what that means is that some of the priorities may need to shift. And, you know, the conversation that Warren and I had before this call was that marketing gets moved up on the priority list during this time, because it's the difference between making it and not making it. If you make product innovations and service innovations and you plan to stay in business, but you don't tell anybody, it's not going to work.
There was another question on the chat that I think was similar. It was Delise West from HR Partners also asking about what percentage you recommend. And Delise, I believe that our panelists did answer that, but if not. And if you'd like to ask a question, you know, out loud, please feel free, unmute yourself and jump in. So we do have a couple of options for Q&A. I'm not seeing any more right now, Melissa, unless you've seen some that I haven't. So does anyone else have any questions for our panelists? Could I ask Kevin Duffy, would you be willing to unmute yourself and just weigh in? And I know Brett Carmichael is on the call as well. Do you have any thoughts about, again, what you promote to your clients? Do you want to weigh in about what strategies you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, thank you. You know, we obviously we agree with really everything that's been said on this webinar. You know, this isn't to go dark. It's actually a time to actually really put yourself out there, because people are looking for information. There's so much uncertainty out there. You have to quell that uncertainty, and you know, and there's things that you can just do on your own in terms of, you know, I know there's a lot of angst sometimes of, well, where do I start and where do I go? And it's always good just to sit down and create a plan right up from the beginning. Just like anything else you do, you know, what is the old saying is, you know, if you don't have a map, you're not going to know, you know, where you're going. And it's important to have that map in front of you, some kind of a strategy to sit down and say, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do this. And you create a plan for it. And it doesn't have to be that complicated, but some kind of plan to at least measure what you're doing and to at least give you some guidance as you go forward. And as you know, Christine and Warren both said, you know, data is key in today's marketing world. I suppose I've been in marketing for 30 years. As opposed to 30 years ago, where it took an arm and a leg to find out exactly how your marketing was performing. It's very easy now. And so if something can be measured, it should be measured, because that's really the only way you're going to find out if your marketing is working. And there's, you know, all the different platforms provide different reporting tools for you to see how your marketing is doing. So I would say, again, my big advice is just make sure you have a plan going into it. Just sit down before you do anything and work out the plan, and then create actual ways to measure what you're doing to see if you're doing it, if it's working. Marketing is an inexact science. Some things work, some things don't work. The best thing you can do is, you know, see if it's working. If it's not working, pivot to something else. Try this, and sooner or later you'll figure out, you know, what your audience is going to respond to.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a great point, Kevin. I just want to,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, please, go ahead.
I just want to add like a couple of things and sort of agree with everything that you and Christine said, but the market is going to be different. The market is in transition right now. The market is going to be different on the other side of this. Again, like I said before, we don't even know what the other side looks like. So, but we know it's going to be different. So your messaging has to be creative, has to be new, has to be fresh, and should be dealing with the new reality. Your brand, you put a lot of work into your brand if you've been in business for a while. That brand will have to be edited, sort of formatted a bit differently to understand what that new reality is. And customers are making decisions differently than they were. Your customers are making different decisions than they were. Christine had a great point around what's to the top, what's at the top of mind when it's not only restaurants, it's whenever you have customer contact. Any customer contact point is an important sense of awareness. How do you make your customers understand what your operation will be like? So that sense of awareness is so vitally important right now, and until we know really what the other side will look like. We might not know that till the middle of 2021.
Yeah,
That's true.
that's where the data provides the certainty in the uncertain times. You just have to watch it and learn, and then keep adjusting accordingly.
I think, the other thing I think in terms of brand as well is if you have a good sense of your brand, that should be a litmus test in terms of how you approach the marketing. And it's a good way to kind of, if we're going to do this, does that reflect well on the brand? Does that work with our brand? If it doesn't, maybe we should pivot our brand a little bit that way. In terms of building trust is built through consistency. And if you're not consistent, you're all over the place with your messaging, it wearies people. So you want to be, to build that trust, because trust leads to use and use leads to conversions. You really want to be consistent with whatever you're going to be doing. Just make sure you're consistent across all your platforms.
Thanks.
Melissa has advised me, Melissa is our resident Zoom expert, that apparently you can't just unmute yourselves and ask questions. So she is recommending that you use the raise your hand feature, and then we can unmute you and ask your question. But I think, Brett, it looks like she unmuted you. Brett Carmichael runs LeapWorks. And one of the things I'm hoping Brett might address is something the Chamber has experienced. We're trying to keep our website up to date with all of our members and local businesses that are either that are open at this time and offering services, and we're struggling to get that information. When we go to their websites, it's not updated. So that's piggybacking on something Christine said at the outset of this, get your foundations in order. We're trying to go to people's websites to get updated information to help our members get the word out, and we can't even get that information. And that's maybe something Brett could speak to as well. Brett, did you want to chime in?
Yeah, raise a great point. A lot of small businesses have they may have built their website a long time ago, or maybe they had a third party build that website for them. And
Brett, we're having trouble hearing you. Could you just speak up a little bit? You're not coming through very clearly. Uh-oh, now what did I do?
Is this better?
Try it again, Brett, please, if you would. Now you're muted. Now you're unmuted.
How about it now?
Good, go ahead.
Okay. Switch microphones. And so a lot of small businesses may have their websites developed by a third party, and they may be difficult or expensive to have that updated to reflect new business hours, new service offerings. How do you message that? How do you design those pages and deliver good experience? Just tactically, what I'm telling folks is leverage Google My Business. That'll do two things. It'll give you feature pockets and local searches for what you're doing. Make sure your hours are up to date. It's free to use. It will give you metrics on how you're performing clicks. It will also allow you to push updates like any social media channel. So with Google My Business is really helpful if you draw a parallel to like Facebook or any other social media tool where you have a news feed and it's a push system. The social network pushes content to you on Google My Business. On Google My Business, that's a response to a search input, so it's intent driven. So somebody has a specific intent to acquire or learn about something. So that's a good place to be, even if you can't update your website or you can't deliver a great user experience on your website. Second, third, what I'm telling people is really more philosophically, and it has to do with messaging, like you were saying. Connect to people on values, what your values, what they value in terms of your products and services that you offer, but also what they value, like their fears. So what are you doing to assuage fear that they have about doing business with you, about leaving the house? What are you doing to say that, like, hey, I have empathy for you, I feel your pain, and I'm contributing in some way to lift other people. And then third, just go where your customers are. So they're no longer coming to you. So you have, we're all deprived of social connection, myself included. Right? I can't gather with friends. So what can I do online that brings more intimacy to all the connections that I have? Starting more conversations, joining more Facebook groups. So diversifying your channels and really getting to like positioning online instead of an opportunity to just get scale and reach more people. Use it as an opportunity to really meaningfully communicate.
Thank you, Brett. And for those who were having trouble hearing him, Brett, if you would just type something in the chat about what he's recommending is look into Google My Business. So if you could just type something in the chat, people who either aren't familiar with that or couldn't quite hear. We just had another comment from Delise West from HR Partners. And what she's saying is on sales webinars that she's been on recently, what's been talked about is leading with empathy versus pushing sales. And I think Brett addressed that a little bit, but Christine or Warren, do you want to weigh in on that comment?
Yeah. So, as we continue to look at survey results, there's definitely a projection of the offer piece coming down the road. So initially it is about that empathy piece and safety. So safety is showing up at the top of all research. That is the thing in the minds of consumers that will be most important in deciding who they're going to start interacting with first when it comes to in-person. And that as we moved through this journey, again, that's why the analytics are so important, that we'll move into the offer stage as a higher percentage of people are more comfortable leaving their homes and doing business like a little bit more normal fashion or increased cadence leaving their homes. We're going to move into a stage where offers are going to become more important.
According to Adweek, the top 3 desired tone of brand advertising, and Christine is an expert on this, and I'm just reiterating what she said, are empathy and sympathy, emphasis on safety, and honesty and transparency. Yeah. There's no question about it. I think I'm looking probably at one of the slides you had, and I got this from one of our communication webinars, but it's that's the data out there, and I'm going to emphasize marketing is data driven. It's understanding where your message is, where it's going, who's viewing it, where your customers are. Top priority. As a business professional, you should be understanding that, or hire somebody that can help you with that.
We are at 11:25 now. I want to be respectful for everyone's time, especially our panelists. I don't see any more questions coming through, but you'll see in the chat that Brett did put Google My Business up there, and he has referenced on his website, he put a guide together a little while ago. So if you have additional questions after this, please don't hesitate to reach out to the Chamber. You also have the contact information for our 2 presenters today. But certainly at the Chamber, we're happy to put you in touch with people who can get you the answers you need. I'm also going to put a plug in for the webinar on Friday about the Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness piece. That should be a very, very strong seminar for people who have questions about that. We will be recording that one as well, so we'll make it available on our website for folks who are not able to attend. So again, I'm not seeing any more questions. I would like to thank our panelists for taking the time and presenting this information, and also for all of you who tuned in today to listen to the information. We greatly appreciate it. Stay well, everybody, and hope to see you soon. Bev Hodgson is just saying thank you. So I think you're going to see a few comments in the chat just thanking you for your time. So.
Thank you, Margaret and Melissa, for organizing this.
Thanks, everybody.
Right.
Good luck.
Take care.